learning a lot. But before we start, if I could ask you guys, tell us very briefly where you're from, right in the chat. Oh my gosh, we've got Myanmar, we've got Wrocław. That's absolutely perfect. Let me just say a few things before we start. A few things about IATEFL Poland. IATEFL Poland is the Association of Teachers of English as a Foreign Language. We mostly work with teachers of English in Poland. However, we are open to all cooperation and to all teachers around the world. I would love you to take a look at our website, which is IATEFL.org.pl. Please take a look at it. And there you can find all the current information about what is happening. And as you can see, we've got pretty a lot of webinars so far. And currently, of course, we are waiting for Emily Clark with online language teaching, creating a dynamic learning environment. However, in only 2 days, we're going to have another webinar at the same time. Oh, sorry, a bit earlier, at 6 p.m. Polish time. Skype in the classroom, open your classroom to the world. And then later on 16th of November, we are going to have once again Willow Barnowski, this time telling about 10 activities for incorporating critical thinking and media literacy into your own class. And at the end of November, 23rd of November, we're going to host Marta Nowak, who's going to talk about English for academic purposes, explicitly acquiring practical skills in the English classroom. So please visit our webpage. We are absolutely thrilled to be for you and to be with you. And we believe that our association is Teachers for Teachers. It's about sharing. And without much further ado, I would like to introduce my fantastic friend, Lucyna Wilinkiewicz. And Lucyna, over to you.
Thanks, Emily. That was well conceived of. I saw it immediately. Perfect body language. I'm really impressed. I would like to be able to introduce Emily to all of us. There is a lot of information, but I will just choose the main areas because Emily has an idea that she would like to give the frame to her next webinar for us based on our expectations. She is very much into needs analysis, and she prepared such detailed needs analysis for me, which I filled in, and I learned a lot by filling it in. So thank you for being my teacher. That was really a big and very useful experience, building my professional skills. And I would like to present Emily's profile from the perspective of the possibility of topics, the range of topics that we, the participants of this particular webinar, would be interested in while participating in the next 3 webinars of Emily. Because I would like to let you know that Emily is willing to share her expertise with us in series of webinars. So there will be 3 more webinars, and the topics it would be convenient for her to adapt the topics to our expectations. So let me just very briefly refer to professional profile of Emily. So as far as education is concerned, I would like to mention the University of Kansas and Georgia State University. There are a number of others for sure. So if you are interested in it, I have Emily's CV, which is really impressive. That was so much information that shows your professional development path. And Emily is a specialist in the following areas. And now I would like each of you to listen carefully, because then I will ask you to write in the chat box the areas that you would be especially interested in for the next webinar or webinars. So curriculum design is the first area. Then technology enhancement of curriculum. So implementation of technology into while designing our syllabuses. Teacher professional development and teacher training within this framework. Then the next area concerning the so-called relevant non-English language teaching skills is marketing and new programs, scaffold curriculum, then train teachers in-house. So that's not relevant, but if we treat our platform as our classroom, then we could have a training session with Emily. But I think there would be too many people interested in this training, so it might create a problem, but maybe in some other form. Rating speaking tests, rating entrance testing, professional development course online, adaptation and creation of curricula and adaptation. Then teaching the so-called intensive English. And then I would like, so these are the areas, yes? I have details about these areas further on, but I'm not going to talk about them. Write in the chat box during the webinar it doesn't have to be right now, because maybe after the webinar you will know more. Maybe you will want the continuation of the topic presented today. We will see, yes? But I would like to be able to analyze your needs from the chat box and then share this information with Emily. Emily is, to begin with, is an English language fellow, yes? Not only a specialist, not only a lecturer, but also a graduate teaching assistant, also business English tutor. That is, for me personally, this is a very interesting area, and that would be one of the topics that I personally would be really interested in. She has also completed many tasks in the area of voluntary teaching, and also substitute teacher in some of the universities in the United States, teaching instructor, and she is a member of professional associations, organizations, like, for example, MIT-TESOL or TESOL. And also, apart from practical aspects, she has also prepared all kinds of workshops, and there is the whole range of publications, the whole range of presentations that I have, professional service, technology proficiency, and so on. So now over to you. Yes, online language teaching, creating a dynamic learning environment.
Okay, thank you so much. I would love for you to come to my class every day and introduce me. That would be amazing. Like, please, students.
No problem.
Absolutely. Okay, guys, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited to be here. It's the afternoon here in Kansas, so I know it's evening for you. So I just really am so thankful that I can be here with you and have this experience. If you have any questions or comments or thoughts, absolutely put those in the chat. I will address those later on in the presentation. So let's first get started. What I would like to do is just have a brief poll. So I'm going to pull that up now. Okay. And the question is, what is one area that you want to improve for your online teaching? So this also might help get us some data that we're looking for. So if you can answer, this is open, so you can write as you wish. And if we can do this fairly quickly, that would be great. So no full sentences, just keywords would be great. And then I can share out, and then we'll get into the content of what we're looking for. So I'll give you just a few minutes there. If for some reason you're unable to do it, then you're welcome to type in the chat box as well. At the end of the presentation, I will show you another tool, tech tool, that I use with students because it's not in this platform. So I use a different type of technology tool to get information from students or to quiz them. Actually, I use quite a few, but I'll talk briefly about that later. But this was just a really quick and easy way to get information from you all as well. So we'll take a few more minutes to gather this information. I'm very much looking forward to it. You know, while we're waiting, I will talk a little bit about what we know. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with TESOL's 6 principles, but TESOL has come out, TESOL International has come out with several different frameworks for teaching generally that don't necessarily have to apply to online teaching, but they can. And the very first one is to know your learner. So the entire principle is you can't teach well if you don't know your students, you don't know who's in front of you. So this is just another tool for me to see who am I talking to. And we have a bigger group. This is a little different, again, than a classroom setting would be, but generally speaking, we're looking at trends, and that information will really help me ensure that you get what you need to be successful in your classes, or more successful, I should say. I do see a few here that are quite good, variety of tools. So I'll talk a little bit about those today, but not a lot. Motivating, so hopefully the idea of engaging will get to motivation. Innovating, variety of methods, okay. Evaluating, assessment would be a different one, of course. Material development, authentic materials, absolutely. I do refer to some websites here, and there's a handout as well for those kinds of things. Time management is certainly something, dynamic classes, okay, great. Take just a few more minutes. Just a few keywords, that should be sufficient. Speaking online. Okay. In the chat, if you could tell me what technology do you already use? So is it Zoom, Google, Microsoft Teams? What are you using to teach currently? Canvas, Blackboard, something else? WebEx, okay. Skype, Teams. Oh, I love Teams. That's great. That's great. That's great. Okay. Zoom. I also use Zoom. I like that too. All right. Awesome. I love OneNote. Yeah, Office. Basically, Microsoft is really helping me through this pandemic, certainly. Okay. I have used Skype. Software for course books, absolutely. That's also another interesting thing for me to know. What textbooks are you using? What publishers? Are they in-house textbooks or large companies like National Geographic or Pearson or Pearson? Okay. Macmillan. Okay, nice. Oxford. Okay. Awesome. Oh, good. I like English grammar and use. That's quite good. Nice. Okay, can I end the voting? Let's go ahead and end just for the sake of time. But if you didn't get to vote, please make sure I'll put my email here. You can email me directly, or you can type in the chat. But just for the sake of time, let's go ahead and end. I want to share these results here. Okay. So it's telling me how do I show that? All right, I can see that people voted. How do I show the summary? Marcin, do you know? I can come back to that.
Showing, it is showing.
I can always. Can you repeat?
We
let's be sure.
I can see that.
Okay, you can see the percentage, but can you see what the answers were? You can see the summary. Okay.
No, just a summary.
Okay. All right. That's all right. I think maybe afterwards it'll give me a report and I can look at that. So that's would be really interesting for me. Okay, let's move on. So that took a little bit of time, but let's move on and dive in. So again, my name is Emily Clark. I am a language specialist with the Department of State and the Reload Tallinn in Estonia. But I also am a language specialist at the University of Kansas as well. So that's, I wear multiple hats, and I also work on other projects as well. I was an English language fellow in Laos as well, about 6 years ago. So essentially, I was kind of looking for big categories here. Are you interested in technology, curriculum, activities, engagement, online design? I saw a lot of those here in the chat, so I'll be able to kind of collate this information together. Oh, Anna, good to know. So you could see them, so that's nice. So maybe I just can't see it from my view. This is a new tool for me, so you get to see me testing out something new. All right, so what I'm going to focus on for today is methodology, design, and application. Because the idea is that, it's always good. You already know the methods, but it's good to kind of come back to that and see what does that look like in an online context. Talk about design generally, in a much broader sense, but then also in a daily sense. And then talk about how are we going to apply this and make our classrooms engaging and exciting. And it sounds like you guys are already doing a lot of amazing things. Okay, so first off, we're talking about methodology. Essentially, what I really anticipate coming out of this particular season with the pandemic is it's really forcing ESL and EFL to be, before there's, many different types of technology, and you might have some online classes, maybe some training online, but not necessarily all language online. So all teachers online, all languages online is a very new approach. Instructor-led online classes are a new approach to language teaching, at least completely. And so I think this is going to be in a few years, I think we're going to have some really innovative, interesting methodology, as well as research-based ideas about really how are we learning language online? What does that look like? And so I think we'll get a lot more of that in the next few years. But currently at this juncture, we're still working under some premise that the real goal of language teaching is to use the language. That's the end goal. And so their students have different goals for why they need to learn English, but the end goal is, can I communicate in that language in the functionality that I want to? And essentially what I love about Prabhu, this is from 1990, it's a little old, but the premise is still the same, where there is no necessarily best method. It's what works in your context for your learners, for your classroom, and most likely you're going to be using a mixed methods approach. So you're going to be using various methods to be able to accomplish what your students need to learn. And essentially, what would this look like online. So I always like to be really practical. I love theory. It's very interesting. It's very important to have that basis and know why we do what we do. But I also want to know, okay, so tell me what that looks like in a classroom. And so if I'm thinking about TPR, and we know TPR, the idea of like, we're going to use the language and we're going to respond with our body at the same time. So one thing I have done with students before in a classroom, but I think it would really work very easily. I'm teaching a more advanced class currently, so that's not salient, but, is to do something like we're learning body parts, right? So, heads, shoulders, knees, and toes. And you can do a video. You can have the students do it with you. It looks like an exercise video. This is my nose. This is my mouth. If you have small children in your classroom, you're teaching young children, young learners, then that could be very effective. And it's more engaging, it's more interesting than, just sitting here, particularly because I think with young learners, you really have to be able to keep them engaged, keep their attention going there. And so I really do think TPR really could work very well. Body language really does communicate a lot. And with a video, we can still do a lot, surprisingly, than you would think. Communicative language teaching. So, which can be approach and a method, but here I'm really referring to it as a method of learning. So one thing that we do often, again, the goal is to communicate. So if I invite you to a party, you're going to say, yes, I want to come, or no, I'm not. Well, this year it's a little tricky because we can't go to parties, but generally speaking, it's still a communicative act and a practice that we want to have some experience with. So typically the way that would go is you'd cover the grammar of it. So I invite you to a party, you can't come or you don't want to come, so you're going to decline. With me in a synchronous setting, you pair students up, you put them in lines, they talk to each other, very simple. Well, in a classroom setting, I should say, but in a synchronous setting, you could still have them do that. You could do it in breakout rooms. You could have them, partner up, many different ways to do that. And then in an asynchronous setting, you could use VoiceThread. I don't know if you use VoiceThread. It's really good for, imagine like a verbal online discussion board. So it's quite good. The free version is not as good, but there is a free version. The paid version, institutional version, is better, and it is asynchronous, but it's a very nice way to be able to respond to students privately and for students to engage with each other. Also, we have content-based instruction. So if the goal really was, I have to teach them this content, but also language, how could I do that? So example could be art history. So I'm going to use some authentic materials, like real art, examples of art, with or without L1, because, art vocabulary could be very challenging. And then we could have a discussion, is this my favorite piece of art? Because why? And have a discussion. And then asynchronously, you could do a virtual tour of museums. A lot of museums are doing those where you can. The Smithsonian, I know in Washington, D.C. is doing that. Many different museums locally also are doing that, where you can see some of their exhibits virtually. So that could be something students could easily do. I went to the museum, I looked at some things, and I was able to come up with some information. And then again, you're teaching them the language of how do I talk about art? What adjectives do I need? How do I critique it as well? Also, if you ascribe to the silent way, so the silent way, the teacher really is not communicating. The focus is on students being student-centered, and the teacher is pointing at things. A little bit harder online, I won't lie, because I think I'm pointing here, but it's really outside the frame. So that would have to probably be practiced a little bit. But it's possible with a video where the teacher is pointing to sounds, and that's in a voice thread, for example, and the students are responding back without the sound to hear it, and they're going to see the sound, know which one to produce, and then produce it. So that's possible. English for academic purposes, I noticed Marcin mentioned that is a great way to, it's a very innovative way to learn English at a university level, because they're already motivated, because it's going to be English that's going to help them accomplish what they need to grasp the content from their classes. So they give a group presentation, they give an individual presentation, very easy. They can pull a topic from their university class, and there you go. And then you're basically working with them on research, on citations, on not plagiarizing, those types of things. And then again, the language of outlining, giving an organized, clear presentation, again, without plagiarizing, that's where they would need the support. So very easy to do in an online setting. And then also another, communicative language teaching. So let's imagine I have an advanced class of students and I want to do a debate and I want to talk about healthcare. And so that could be something that, the students could easily debate, even in a group, in breakout rooms, or in a whole class, depending on how big your class is. Or you can do it asynchronously. They can record their arguments, argue back and forth. It can be a really nice way to accomplish language. And it's also a bit of a task-based approach, which I think is very effective online. Okay, so that's just a really quick review of methods, what they could look like online. Obviously, there are many more methods. Certainly, I just cherry picked these from the options that there are, but these are ones I definitely think can work online, and there are many others I think can be very effective online as well. So if I'm thinking about course design, and I decided to focus on this because here's the thing. We're teachers, we're classroom teachers, we're language teachers. So we're used to having a syllabus, having a general course plan, and being able to teach in a face-to-face setting very fluidly, I'll say. So I'm very used to, I had a plan. It looks like the students are not, I look at them, I look in their eyes, they're not understanding. I need to change this plan. I wanted to do this today. I'm going to have to push this to tomorrow. And so you're just able to flex very easily. In an online setting, you simply can't. There's a lot, I kind of imagine it to be, there are two strands of teaching online. You have the course designer. I'm going to think through every possible nuance of this class as much as I can, depending on how much time I have to plan. And that's part of my job. And then the other part is facilitating. So I'm not going to just lecture to them because I want to make it engaging. I want to make it fun. I want them to produce language. So when we get to the actual synchronous part, or again, if it's asynchronous, then how am I getting language out of them? And I'm not just lecturing to them, like, unfortunately, I'm lecturing to you today. And so we think about, those two types of skills are very divergent. And so it can be really different and really, interesting to think about. So I just want to talk a little bit about, first, before you ever start your online class, you have to do a lot of work and you have to do a lot of prep. And the more prep that you do in the beginning, the better the class is going to be. So I want to talk about some best practices. So first, you have to know in your context, is it synchronous or asynchronous, or a hybrid? Right now, my course is a hybrid that I'm actually subbing. I'm doing some other work, but I'm subbing. So the course is a hybrid. I meet them on Teams, and then they also do work on Blackboard online. So there are pros and cons to all of those different styles. Personally, even though I know that synchronous isn't a traditional online learning style, I personally like a synchronous component because I think language learning is very personal, and students really enjoy having that connection with teacher. So I would say that's something that's worthy of having a synchronous component if possible. What kind of videos will you use? So I definitely recommend using videos. I've seen when I've reviewed courses before, created my own courses, there is something very personal about saying, this is Emily, this is what she looks like. When I'm writing her an email, I know what she looks like. There's something personal about that and making sure that that's there. And so I think if you're making videos, that can be a really great way to do, but it takes a lot of time. Also, I would say keep your videos short as well. So no more than 10 minutes. How will you use the textbook? I think this is a really good point. A few of you mentioned using like an online workbook or a course book. And if it comes with activities, wonderful, because they can get feedback. It's already set up and online. All you have to do is get them registered, and then you can focus on other things in your learning management system. But how you're using the textbook really is important. So I don't have it right here with me, but imagine I have my textbook. If I were just reading to you, and this is our live session, that wouldn't be very engaging. So particularly for the receptive skills, so listening and reading, are those things that I can flip it and they do those outside of class? Do I need to do them in class? And if I do, can I make it engaging as well? How often and how are you going to engage with students? So what are your office hours? How can they contact you? I think, what are some, consistently, how are they reaching out to you? So essentially, you need to give them reasons to have to come back to your course. So if, they log in on Monday, they log in on Friday for the test, they've got to be able to come back every day. They have to have some kind of reason to make them need to come back, at least at first, because they may not want to, and then eventually be excited about using that. I also agree with you guys. Yes, Pearson has they do have some software that can be online workbook, as does National Geographic, Cengage, and Cambridge, I believe. How are you going to gauge that they understand? So right now I can't see you very easily. So how do I know that you're tracking with me? I can see the chat list. So that's helping me a little bit. So thank you for that. Keep typing in the chat list. But what are you building into the class to make sure that they're understanding? So not just the summative assessment, but all along the way of like office hours and formative assessment, all of those things. And then again, what technology are you going to use and how much of it? Remember, less is more. The students are having to learn technology, sometimes culture of technology, language for technology. So not just, English language to invite someone, but I now need to know the words log on, click here, scroll down, like all of that is very specific language. And this is an extra tidbit, but I would, if you can, this is maybe where you would do some grammar translation if you needed to give them a key and translate some of the directions for getting online. But, most students are very technologically savvy. But again, just try to keep it simple if you can. And then you can always add more technology the next term if you need to. Scheduling considerations. This is important because if you have a multi-level class, if you have differentiated learners, if you have a group that's supposed to be intermediate, but you really have some beginners and you have some students kind of pushing advanced, you may have to decide across the week, I'm going to meet them on different days. Not the whole term, because I don't think you could do that the whole term, but maybe for the first couple of weeks, I'm really going to focus with the beginners on Monday, Wednesday. I'm going to focus with the more advanced students on Tuesday, Thursday, if your context allows you to do that. And I should point out that American English at State, if you click on this link, has some more information. American English at State is a great resource, and they have more information about scheduling and doing different types of groupings with students that are differentiated in terms of students at varied proficiency. You may also decide you need to do extra scheduling with students. Here's the thing. Teachers don't have a lot of extra time. We're managing our public, our all of the things, so our professional development, you guys are here at night, you have families, we're all just managing. And so, look at your schedule and see what you can do. But if you have some students who really do need some extra support, how can they get that support? Either from you, from an online, a workbook where they could get extra exercises, or possibly other tutoring as well, because time is a consideration. I agree. How are you going to be available? A lot of you said that you use Teams. And one way that my colleague has used this, and I've been using it with her class that I'm subbing for, Microsoft Teams is really great. You can put it on your phone. You have the app. So if you're in my Teams, you can send me a message. It goes to my phone. I can text you back. I don't have to have your phone number, so that still keeps professional distance. But you're able to get in contact with me, which maybe you don't want, but I feel like students like knowing I have a question and I can get to you really easily. And so they've really responded very well to using Teams, and of course, email as well. Again, scheduling synchronous hours, I do that. I really like it. You may need to work on a 7-day pace. So a traditional online course would be 7 days and not Monday through Friday. So thinking about over the weekend, how are you going to plan when things are due, giving them the extra time, giving them as much time as they need to be able to acquire the language to be successful in what you're looking for, and also considering longer modules. Point 3 in scheduling. Availability outside of class. Essentially, you know, back to office hours, you know, how do you want to, if, for example, if a student sends me a message on the weekend, if it's outside of my office hour, I'm okay with answering them because that lowers their anxiety in terms of questions that they have. So again, you know, how much do you want to be available? Do you just want to say my office hours are Mondays and Wednesdays, 1 to 3? Exactly. Yeah. So you can. For me, I don't. It's just up to you. For me, I don't. I work on a seven-day schedule because I want every ounce of that time to be able to. I need the time. I need all of the days. But if you want to keep your office hours within that amount of time, then you may have to schedule your assessments within that amount of time, because typically that's when students have questions and need support, is when they're taking an assessment. And also when they procrastinate and wait to the last minute and then they have questions, which happens a lot. Quickly, just something that I'm sure you already know, but just a nice reminder is what we know is, you know, novice teachers are often advised to plan in great detail. So when you're a new teacher, you're going to have lesson plans that are immaculate. They're very, very detailed. And now, you know, maybe I write on a sticky note, do 1, 2, 3. Which I'm not saying that's the best thing to do either, but you know, at some point, if you've taught the class many times, it's a possibility you can teach it very well and you don't have to have very good detail. I still don't like to do that, but it's a possibility. But teaching online, again, doesn't allow you to do that. So you have to be able to plan sufficiently. It takes a lot of time and you have to be able to do it ahead of time. Quickly, I just want to refer to backwards design. Backwards design is a curriculum design for all online classes, not just language classes. And the premise is I'm going to focus on making sure that my class is working, you know, from the end of the term all the way through. So these are the assessments I'm going to do, or maybe someone gives you the assessments. These are the activities I want to do, the recurring activities. Every week they're going to do a journal. Every week they're going to do whatever it is you're wanting. And then in addition to that, you also are thinking through, you know, generally within my modules. So these are my learning outcomes. So you're just making sure everything is aligned. These are my learning outcomes for this course. These are the activities for this course. And these are the assessments, because you don't have a lot of time in an online class to be able to, I guess the best way in English to say is wing it. So again, in a face-to-face class, I might see, yeah, I made this test. I think it's not going to work. I'm going to change the test and do something different. And so you just want to make sure that when you design your course, when you set it up, whatever learning management system you're using, that you've really thought through, how am I going to engage? How am I going to give them feedback? How much formative assessment will I give them and give them feedback? How many summative assessments? Are there 10 tests? Are they productive? Are they grammar-based? You know, do you have other types of, you know, thinking through, because that gets into your timing, right? How do you manage your time if you have, it would be very different if I had a bunch of self-grading grammar tests versus discussions that I'm having to grade. So that's a different thought there. And then again, just making sure that you're personalizing the content. So if I can see the trajectory from the beginning all the way to the end, and from the end all the way to the beginning, I can see a theme. I can see, you know, some different ways for me to be able to personalize, to make it engaging, to make it exciting. And now I have a plan. all the way through my class, if it's 7 weeks or 15 weeks. And now I can start planning in, and it becomes a lot easier to plan your class, actually, because now that you've designed it, you get to do the fun part, which is teaching. Actually, I like the design part too, but not everybody does, because we're just doing a lot more of it than what we did before. You do have to plan for engagement. I just want to talk about this really quickly. Engagement doesn't just happen. So if you say, oh, my students aren't very interested, they don't have their screens on, I can't see them. Sometimes they're like this. I have office hours. They don't come to office hours. I email them directions. They don't read my directions. Again, you're thinking through big picture. How can I plan this out? So my new strategy, I haven't tried this, but I'll tell you my secret, and I'll tell you how well it works out, or you can try it and tell me how it works for you. But my new strategy next spring is to essentially assign students a time. So instead of I don't love waiting in office hours, just kind of waiting for students to come. So I want to be able to say, Emily, you're going to meet with me. Let's talk, let's negotiate a time. It depends on how big your class. If you have a huge class, you can't do this. But every Monday from 3 to 3:15, you're going to meet with me. And if you don't need to meet with me, that's fine. Just send me a message or text message and say, honestly, I think I'm good. I don't have any questions. I don't need any help. But otherwise, I'm expecting you to come. And this is, your special time with me, that I'm going to make sure that you're clear. Your questions are answered. If I need to give you feedback on your performance, just a quick check-in. Everything's okay. You're doing okay. You know me. I know you. And that's something I'm planning to do. I do a lot of that in face-to-face classes. I do a lot of office hours with students to pull them out and really get to know them. So that's a plan that I'm going to do. It will depend somewhat on how large my class is in spring. Also, I like to do a lot of pair and group work. So if they're normally, if this were a class setting, you guys would be in breakout rooms. You'd be doing tasks. And I would just be coming around checking with you. In a classroom, you guys would be doing tasks. I'd be checking with you. I would have flipped it. So whatever you need to do in this class setting, you've already done for homework. So when you come to class, you're ready to go. You have your notes. You did the reading. You did your homework. And now we're going to use the language, because I don't want to sit there and watch them fill in a notebook when that's something they can do independently. And so I talk to them a lot about, let's use our time wisely. If students don't submit their homework, it does happen. So sometimes I try to make what we're doing so fun in the synchronous part. So I try not to make it drudgery. Sometimes I just let them have it. Okay, you didn't do the homework. You need to get in a group with somebody who did. Maybe your peers will help you. I'm not going to take class time out to help you right now. So if you want to, this group is ready. They're a very nice group. They want to help you. They'll jump in. If it's a student who's continually doing that, that's when I would talk to them during office hours to see what's going on. There may be a reason why they're not doing it, and I would want to talk to them about that. But I try to make homework really purposeful. So I tell them, I'm not just giving you a bunch of homework. I'm giving you really strategic homework. So if you don't do the homework, that is always your choice. You always have a choice. I can't make you do the homework unless I grade it. And then, then they feel motivated for that sometimes. But I really do want you to do this. I promise you it's more work for me. So, because I'm going to check it, I'm going to give feedback. So if I give you homework, I really want you to do it. And I promise you it's going to help you. And I always give them very strategic. And again, that gets back to planning. All of the activities, all the homework, everything we're doing, even if it's fun, has a purpose. It's not just, hey, we're going to learn, a song in English today. We're going to learn a song in English today because we're working on specific grammar, specific vocabulary, specific pronunciation. And I really want them to do that for a purpose. And once they know there's a purpose, particularly with adult learners, it's, and I think children to an extent too, they want to know I'm doing this for a reason. And if they know that, it's much easier. I want to get to the fun part, so I'm going to skip ahead pretty quickly. All right, let's get to teaching. Absolutely, you're very welcome. I probably have some more thoughts on that. That was just a quick answer. So imagine that you have a face-to-face lesson. And your face-to-face lesson is task-based, right? So you want the students to do a task. They're going to have to use English to do the task, and that's how they're going to engage with the language. And hopefully the task is so fun that they forget that they're using English, right? So they're kind of engaging. So imagine if I were in a face-to-face classroom, I might put them in discussion groups, give them, a problem. Maybe the problem is online learning. Just, because I'm kind of curious, what do they like about online learning? What don't they like? And some of them don't like it, truly. And so I want to get to that and kind of dig into that. You don't have to stuff that down. We can have that conversation. What don't you like about online learning? Because maybe there's something I can do to fix that. Maybe there's something we can do together and negotiate that. So I might say, maybe for some students, this is a problem. Let's come up with some solutions. And they have to come up with the solution. I walk around, I engage with them, I answer questions, I get into a dialogue. Sometimes I play devil's advocate with them just to get them, to have to argue back with me. Because again, if you're arguing, you're using language. And I really always encourage that, unless they're being very disrespectful. But generally speaking, you're using language to negotiate meaning, and that's how language is achieved. So absolutely, let's do it. And then everybody would share out. Maybe they would share out with Socrative. I like to use Socrative. It's an app that's open boxes, so they can type in their answers. They show up. They can be anonymous. And then, we go through them and we say, this is really great. I might also, after that's finished, we've shared out, we have some solutions. Now I might say, okay, when I was walking around, I noticed some of you guys were kind of disagreeing, but you weren't very polite, or you weren't taking turns. So we're going to work on some language for discussions. And that's really my focus. My learning outcome is, can they use language to have a discussion? But I'm going to give them something that's a task where I'm not really teaching them that. I want them to do the task first before we get to that point. And now I'm going to go back in and fill in some gaps for where they're missing that language. And so that's really easy to do face-to-face. That same lesson I could also do online. So again, maybe I put them in Zoom, put them in breakout rooms. Maybe I put them in VoiceThread online. That's really easy to do. Maybe I do it Flipgrid. Same thing. It's a video app. It's a threaded comments together, and they can engage with each other. You get to choose technology that works for you in your context, what you like. It's your thought, but that's something you do. Maybe they come back and share, together. Maybe the teacher reads them, engages with them, asks some good questions. And again, you can still run Quizlet as well from an online setting. I've given links for students to create their own. Yes, there are breakout rooms in Teams too. You can do channels. I use groups in Teams as well. Absolutely. So you can put students in channels in Teams. They can upload files. It's just really innovative. There's a lot that can be done. If you use Microsoft OneNote, you can also connect that to Teams. You have a lot of choices. If you use OneNote, they can upload files just like you would a Google Doc. So you can do audio files, and you have a lot of options. So my highlight here only is that we can make this work. It can happen online, and it can still be really dynamic. Another example, so maybe communicative language teaching, I say, okay, let's watch a video. Maybe it's from Pearson, maybe it's from, I'm not entirely sure, but they have different ideas. They're going to watch a video. They're going to take notes. They're going to make a summary. The summary could be in writing. The summary could be in speaking. Totally up to you. It depends on your outcomes. Now they're going to create a class summary using a whiteboard. So we have a whiteboard here in this particular platform, but you can use that kind of whiteboard, or you can use a physical whiteboard. I have, and I'm going to share my, turn it around a little bit. I have a light board that I created here. And so I've been using that in my teaching. You just have some options. It depends on what you want to do. In a classroom, easy enough to do. And then online, same thing. watch a video, they start a summary, maybe they work on it collaboratively. One person writes the first sentence, the next person writes the next one. Yes, OneNote. I'm telling you, I use OneNote in Teams all the time. Absolutely wonderful for collaborative writing. Absolutely, hands down. Thank you so much for that. I like to have the students choose different colors. So I might be purple, someone else is a different color. That way we know when we see those colors, that's who the person is that's writing. They can work together and summarize. We can check the summaries, work in groups. You just have so many different choices. And maybe at the end, they vote on the best summary. Which one is the best? In discussion boards and Blackboard, you can give like stars. So, oh, this is a 4-star summary. This one is a 2-star. Again, it's anonymous, it's in a group work, so kind of working through all of those things. And so I just wanted to kind of highlight, again, the point is we can transition our lessons online. It is possible to do it and still make them very engaging. I also see some good comments here in the chat, so maybe I'll come back to that if we have time, checking the time. Some online tasks that we know will definitely work. Planned speaking is very easy to do online. If you have a way to record yourself speaking, however, with a smartphone, there's an app called, oh, I just lost it, Voice Record. You can't see it because I've got to move it over. Voice Record. This is a great app. It has very good quality. I use it to make assessments. I've used it to make all kinds of things. So I use it all the time. It uploads to many different things, such as Google's, I use Google Drive, but it'll upload to many different other apps. And then there you go. So students can use that. I do use Flipgrid, absolutely. Online collaborative writing, journal writing is really easy. If you use OneNote, you can definitely do journals because they have private folders in OneNote, and I used it as a journal with even my beginner students could do journals there as well. Vocabulary is very easy online. You can do Quizlet. You could do vocabulary. I've even seen people do vocabulary PowerPoints where they have like a word and then, the teacher can record over the word. This is how you pronounce this word. And then the next word, or maybe the students make their own. If you teach them how to record in PowerPoint, why not? I think having the students do that is great. Instructional videos, of course. I also use a lot of how-to because students just sometimes don't read directions online. So this is how you do this. This is how you get on Zoom. In the beginning, especially, just really training them on how to use what the technology that you need. Pronunciation is really easy online. There's so many different ways to be able to get feedback. Sometimes you can use software that gives students feedback without you having to give it to them. Or VoiceThread is really nice to do that because you can have them do pronunciation quizzes very easily, and then you just listen and give them feedback on those. Pronunciation is really easy to isolate online. And then, of course, there are other things you can practice. Critical thinking, I think, is really easy online. You can have students ask questions. They've read something, try to really get to more information. And I also think it's really nice for students that are shy or very quiet. Maybe in a face-to-face setting, they may not be as responsive, but it's much easier to hear everybody's voices online, in my personal opinion. Reading follow-up, but not reading. Again, I basically assign them readings to do, but we're not going to do that in a synchronous setting. I expect them to do that on their own time, but I will have activities to ensure that they did do the reading. Online workbook, we talked about that, and then independent reading. So I listed some websites here that you can see. One of them is Breaking News English. So it's the news, speaking of media literacy, it's the news, but it's been put into it's been simplified essentially for an ESL setting, and they have different levels of simplification. So that may be good for you. If it's too simple, they put the original source, so you can always go to that as well. And then listening, this is ELO, so there are conversations there, transcripts. There's a lot of really great stuff there as well. Differentiated learning, we talked a little bit about this. You can decide how you want to group students. So if they're going to be in a breakout room or however you want to do it, you can decide, do you want to be high, low, low? Personality, I would change that. Maybe in the beginning, I would do high, low, low. just to help them feel comfortable. But at the end, I might start switching them to have a more varied grouping. Choose their own sequence. So I may say, you know, these are the 5 things you have to do this week, and probably more, obviously, but, you know, let's say 5. These are the 5 things you have to do this week. It doesn't matter to me which ones you do in order. Sometimes it will, and they have to do it in order. But I think giving students a lot of autonomy can be really helpful. Oh, high, high, low, low. What I mean by that is proficiency wise. So if I have 2 advanced students or 2 higher proficiency students, they go together. Lower proficiency, exactly, level. Yeah, exactly. That's how I would group them. So, you know, these 2 students have more language, I put them together. These 2 students are beginners, I put them together. And then over time, I'm going to switch them to this student has more language, this student has less, and they're kind of going to have to be the teacher in a lot of ways. Let's see. Yeah, so I may let students choose the sequence. You get to decide. These are the 5 things you have to do this week. You get to decide when to do it, or maybe not. Maybe I prescribe that. It depends. Choose their own content. I like to have students, you know, find some pictures, choose your own story. Find a listening. Now you're going to make questions about your listening. I did that last week where I had the students, for example, they had to go to TED Talks, TED.com, find a video, make some inference questions. So why did, you know, the speaker do this? Why did the speaker do that? And then they had to listen to each other's talks and then answer the questions for their, so Emily makes a video, chooses a video, makes 3 questions. And then another student watches my video and answers my questions. And so it's a way for them to get practice, because sometimes I think students don't understand the questions in an assessment. So having them think through making questions forces them to have the critical thinking to think, what is my teacher asking me when they say why? And so that's a thought there. Choosing their own content, choose your own book report, choose your own video to talk about, and then you're going to summarize it. If you can, sometimes you can't. And then choose their own difficulty level. So this is differentiated learning that we also see in face-to-face. If I have students that are kind of different proficiency levels, I may say, these are 3 worksheets you have to do today, but I have different levels of those worksheets. So you go and look at them and you decide which ones can you do. I can't always do that because maybe I need to really push them to be at a certain level, but I can at least help them try to start somewhere where they feel confident to be ready. Collaboration, again, we talked a lot about this, but share photos of their life, ask and answer questions. I like for them to do interviews. Not everybody likes that. I personally do. Interview your parents, interview your grandmother and ask her about a famous recipe. Interview your brother and ask them, you know, what their favorite memory is. I don't know, but just different ways that they can work together for writing and speaking. There are lots of things that they can do. For that, I'm just going to go through that really quickly. And then again, as we know, just what you do in our regular classroom, we recycle. The activities mean something and we kind of recycle them. They build on each other. All of the skills build together on each other. There's really good synergy. They're not just doing random activities because it seems fun. It all goes together. It's all purposeful. All of the textbooks, the chapters that you choose, the curriculum that you choose, all of the patterns in a week. So patterns are really important, and then all of the courses. So I'm going to get to this really quickly. How can we apply? I wrote down a couple of ideas here that these are a little outside of the box because I wanted to just be very creative, because we can always not, I mean, there are ways to do it many different ways, but I wanted to talk about things that might be a little outside of the box. So for example, I really like students to share videos. And I think you could do different kinds. So for example, cooking videos. I don't know if you like cooking. I don't know if that's your thing. It's definitely mine. I don't know why. It's very soothing for me. Everybody likes food. Students always like to talk about food in my experience. And it's something that they can do very easily. So they can say, you know, difficult to teach beginners online. I would agree. It's difficult, but not impossible. So for example, I might say, this is coffee. I like coffee. Coffee is delicious. It tastes good to me. How to make coffee. first you pour the, first you boil the water. Next, and so you could have them write a recipe and then they video themselves, and they could even read the recipe out loud if they want to do. They can translate. And a beginner level, I think it's okay to be able to use a little bit of translation. Family pets, if they have pictures they want to share or videos. This is my dog. This is my cat. This is my bird at my house. How to do things at home. So if they know how to fix things, or I want to show you how to, because there's language that you can use for those, which I'll talk about briefly. This is a tour of my neighborhood, so you can see my neighborhood. I was walking down the street, so maybe I would video record myself showing my neighborhood to my students. Excuse me. And I might also read a book. So I'm going to show you something very quickly. You won't be able to hear this, but you can see me reading a book. So, oops, sorry. Excuse me. So that was just something I did. I made a video with my bear to talk about it, to read a book to the students as well. So again, you have a lot of choices with that. The language that we use for those particular activities with videos could be vocabulary, grammar. So I'm focusing on adjectives to describe my neighborhood. Imperative to give instructions. So turn on the water, pour milk in your coffee. So, taking out the you subject. They could also do sequencing words. So first, next, finally, last. They write a recipe. They talk to a family. This is my family recipe. This is a regional recipe. This means something to me. It could be something there as well. Let's see. No sound at all. You can't hear me? Oh, okay. Yeah, the video didn't play sound. Yeah, it doesn't. Absolutely. Opinion language. This is my favorite. This is my favorite neighborhood. I really love it. Another idea. So I like to color. I don't know. Maybe I'm a tall child, but there's an app called Happy Color. So I don't know if you've ever done this, but essentially, as a child, I used to color by numbers. So it tells you like where to color. So red is 1. So where you see the 1 is, you color all of, red. So this app, you can color. And of course, it's on your phone. So you do it. And so I've really enjoyed coloring because that's very de-stressing for me in the pandemic. And then I use the pictures for things with the students. So for example, I might have the students, make up a story about this lady. Where is she going? Who is she? So they're going to make up a narrative to go along with this particular person. I might also talk about world culture. So I linked a bunch of these. I also put this in a handout. So Marcin will get all of that to you. But essentially lyrics training, if you can do music with students, if your students like music, this gives them lyrics. They can sing along with the English songs. I think they're all American songs. I'm not sure about that right now. I've had students that were really into music, so that was really good. Maybe I'm working on culture and vocabulary. I think often pronunciation with singing and speaking is not the same. News, I mentioned that before. Daily Motion has a bunch of videos with news, so that may be something for your students. Movie clips. Let's see, a book review. So maybe they do a video like I did, maybe not. The comics and coloring, so they can make comics and put those together, use English to do that as well. Board games. Taboo is actually really great. The purpose of Taboo is to get students to say the word without saying the other words. And so that might be something that that you could easily do. And so if you click on those links, you have some ideas as well. You could also do any type of comparison. So you're going to compare apples and oranges, or books and movies, which one is better? Or online or face-to-face classes, which one is better? Yes, RIP Alex. I know, it's so terrible. It's just very, very sad. Yeah, so there's just a lot that you can do with culture, with games, that can be really great. One thing I want to show you really quickly, I don't need sound for, is I don't know if you've seen this. It's called Wheel of Names. So you can put your students' names in, and then you click and spin it. And you can't hear it, but you would be able to hear it. Yay, Dia. So then you've called on a student. So it will say, so it'll say winner, but essentially maybe if you have some students who are, you don't want to call on them cold, you can just have the wheel do it for you. So that's a really great option. And again, it's very much like Wheel of Fortune from there. What language, vocabulary, pronunciation, possibly bias for media literacy. If you're using those news sources, you can talk about, is this a credible source? Is this bias? Is this fake news? Is this real news? You can really get into some great debate there, critical thinking, slang, a lot of, you can learn a lot about culture from songs and movies, a lot of slang, directions giving, if they're doing, the board games, you have to learn how to follow directions really easily. Compare, contrast, discourse markers. So on one hand, on the other hand, a lot of language there. And then, of course, paragraph essay structure. Ooh, I'm running out of time. So I'll quickly wrap up here. Engaging activity. You can also do a study review. Essentially, the students create the study. You've taught them. Now it's their responsibility. Midterms coming, finals coming, quizzes coming. You need to make a Quizlet that everybody in the class can use. You need to make a PowerPoint that everybody can study. You're going to create a video, or you guys are going to work together and make a video that we can use for future classes. And that can be something they do. Yeah, some games are more challenging. I would say definitely that's why Taboo, you have to sometimes skip the words because it's just, there's too much cultural context to be able to do them. For a review, you can do question formation, test formatting. I talked about that before. Vocabulary, advice modals to give someone advice. You know, next time when you're a student in this class, you should study more. You should learn vocabulary. You should always submit things on time because Emily really likes when you do that, or whatever. And then again, they're reflecting on what they've learned. And that's what you always want students to do. The last engaging activity is, again, to have them do some research skills. One thing I always like to have students do is do quotes. So again, this is me coloring. I have a famous quote from someone I really admire, and I'll have the students go to this website, which I also linked for you. They go there, they find some quotes that they like, and then they practice giving citations at a really like micro level. So because students aren't good at giving citations, like generally speaking, it takes a lot of time, a lot of practice. So instead of saying, write a research paper, and now they've got to curate all this content and citations, it helps them to kind of focus down a little bit as well. They can interview teachers and family and then use that as a quote. My mom said that, and then they use reported speech. My grandmother told me that, blah, blah, blah. They can write their own quotes. Emily Clark, language specialist at the University of Kansas, well, yeah, actually, I'm a language specialist at both, so I get confused. Emily Clark, language specialist with English language programs said that, etc. They can create their own class bibliography. So everybody, picks a quote and they put them together and they learn different things there. And then also, yeah, that's a great one, Barbara. Limits of your language or the limits of your world. Absolutely. So they use a quote, and now you're going to tell me, where did that come from? Who is this person? Are they a credible person? Is this somebody that would be a good source for that? I like to use myself. Would you want me to give you advice about medicine? No. Okay. So is this a good, source? No, don't use this person. And again, what language would they use? So citation language, speaking, writing, reported speech, synthesis. They're taking a lot of different ideas together, using them, and then opinion, formulaic language if they're following up. So, you know, this person said this, however, in my opinion, I disagree because, etc. And then I do have a handout. So that's already here loaded for you. You'll get it. And essentially it just goes over, these are the activity ideas. And then I put some resource options, some of which are technology and some of which are, so there is links. So this is Taboo. You can use it online. Jeopardy. You can make your own Jeopardy. You could do Clue, which is like a murder mystery. So they have to solve, you know, who's the person that died and was murdered, unfortunately. And then if we had time, and we don't, I would go back to Kahoot. So Kahoot I use a lot. I don't know if you use Kahoot, like it a lot. And I would use Kahoot, have you get it on your app. Maybe next time we'll use Kahoot. Love Kahoot. And basically we would do Kahoot, and that's how I would get information from you. So we'd go back to that question. What is one area that you want to improve? And instead of doing all of them, I would have like specific ones, and then you choose. So it would go a lot faster, right? I like Kahoot. It's a very quick way to like ascertain if students are understanding, or, you know, if, you know, exit ticket. Okay, before we leave, we have to do this Kahoot. And that's going to give me information that I can apply later. One thing I also want to show you is I often use my Animoji because this is, it personalizes it. So this is me, you know, they can see, oh, this is Emily. Even with university students, I use this as well. Again, we won't do it. And then we're just going to basically pause here for questions. There's more references if you want to do research. And I would love to take a photo if Marcin can help me with that. And then I'd love to get some questions here. And I think that's it. I think I'm done. Only 5 minutes over. That's pretty impressive for me. So.
Thanks a lot. It was great time. It was really kind of intensive time. Yes, I will just do a couple of screens, and later on we also publish the video on our website. So yes, we've got some couple of screens from them.
Absolutely.
Okay. A few of those.
Marcin, can you save the chat box? I'm trying to save the chat box because there may be some suggestions about the next webinar. Can you save it?
There will be, I will share the chat box later on. It's saved.
Okay. That's great. That's great. Very well. That is very important. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much once again for being with us. Thank you very much, Emily, for fantastic, intensive, well, more than 1 hour ideas. Please visit our webpage, iatefl.org.pl, where you can find updated information about our webinars. You can also get the certificate to this website that I'm posting in the chat box. I would love to also draw your attention to our website once again, because there you will find very important information, namely certificate, of course, from this this thing. However, you can also find the information about the next webinars, and the very next webinar will take place on the 12th of November, and it will be about Skype in the classroom, open classroom to the world, by Małgorzata Bushman. Later on, you can connect with us for yet another webinar. This time it will be by Willow Barnowski, on 16th of November, about 10 activities for incorporating critical thinking and media literacy into your classroom. And finally, join us on 23rd of November for explicit English for academic purposes, explicitly acquiring practical skills in the English classroom by Marta Nowak. So thanks a lot once again for coming to our webinar, and all the best to you. Keep healthy, keep safe, and get back to it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks, Lucyna.
Absolutely. Thanks. Thanks, guys. See you soon.